I hope you're well. Thank you for joining us again on this Sunday evening. It's great to have you. I'm uncomfortable tonight, so you will see me shuffling in my chair a lot. I'm not going to apologise for it because we are the Chronic Pain Club after all. But just so it's out there, so you wonder why I'm fidgeting away, whilst I desperately try to get into a position that doesn't ache. I hope you're all well, guys. Cindy, welcome in from Northern Ireland. Welcome in Lauren from Washington in the States. I hope you're good, guys. If this is your first time here, please do say hello in chat, guys. We are first and foremost a peer support community. We started many years ago, what, 2, 3? I don't know. I feel like I've aged a lot in that time. Over on Twitch, where we essentially were here to be a peer support community, first and foremost. So we would pitch up and we would open the floor to people to share their lived experiences. We basically we created a space. There's only so many times I can share my story as an advocate before people get bored of it. I'm already bored of hearing it myself. So we thought, why not create spaces for other people to share their experiences in the hope that we can reduce stigma, educate, help people feel less alone in a world of social media and filters and what's the word I'm trying to be careful with my words. Manicured realities of the way that people are living with long-term health conditions. Sometimes we feel it's important that we share the reality of what it's actually like day in, day out, which is why we're here on Sunday nights, most weeks, health permitting, both myself and my guests, where we try to share those experiences and support one another. So the usual drill, guys. Tonight we'll be talking about psoriasis and psoriatic arthritis, a little bit about mental health, which is great and very well timed given what's happened with Psoriatic Disease UK. But every story, every lived experience, every condition is valid in chat, guys. So please do keep that going throughout the show. We're here for around about an hour. You are not being disrespectful if you talk about your experiences or ask questions in chat which are not related to what we're talking about. This show serves two purposes. The content that we get tonight from our guest is amazing, and that goes on to be a podcast and video and reach lots of people in various different ways, trying to meet patients where they are. But like I say, the peer support community that we've built here is really special, and everyone's here to support each other. So don't feel like you are being disrespectful. If you want to come on and talk about a different condition in chat, our moderators are there to support you, signpost you, help as best they can. Usual disclaimer, we are not medically trained on this channel and never claim to be, so please bear that in mind. Always consult your healthcare professional. And obviously what is valid for one person is valid for them. It might not be valid for everybody else. That might not work for you. So be aware that the experiences we share on this show are individual. They're personalized to the people that are sharing them. And it doesn't mean it's a one size fits all. Butchered that disclaimer, but there we go. You get the gist. Welcome in, Barry. It's great to see you. Barry, your video, your interview, it was really popular when we done it on hidradenitis suppurativa all those months ago. It's had a second life after we had Angie on the show. So I just thank you for hanging out. We don't get many guests that come back week after week as part of the audience. So thank you for being here. It's always I see you're on YouTube now as well. You used to always join us on LinkedIn, so thank you for joining us on YouTube. But yeah, know that your video is reaching people, mate. It really is. And we've done lots of shorts and things where we've taken clips from that. So we tried to sort of, like I say, meet people where they are. Not everybody's going to watch a 1 hour interview. Not everybody's going to join us live on a Sunday night. So we tried to wrap the content up in different ways. And we've been doing some shorts with your interview, Barry, and it's really reached people and helped people. So thank you so much again for your contribution. Welcome in from Scotland. I know who that is. I don't know what screen name. There's no screen name come up, so I'm not going to say who that is, but it's great to see you in chat. I hope you're well. And also, guys, usual thing, I have to jump between Instagram, Twitch, YouTube, whatever other platform. If I don't join the dots between who you are in chat on YouTube because your name is different to where you are on other platforms, please don't hate me for it. Just drop me a message so I know for next time, because yeah, it's really hard. Well, for a fact, we've got about 18 Gibbons, surnames of Gibbons joins us on this channel, and trying to work out who's in what family is impossible. So yeah, if you would like me to give you a shout out and I haven't joined the dots between how I know you outside of your YouTube channel handle, please do let me know, and I will try and do that next time. And I should probably give a big shout out to our channel members. Every single week I forget to get this up. I'm an idiot, because they're people that are supporting the show and I should really give them a shout out. So give me 2 seconds whilst I do that. Simon's obviously one. Simon's been a channel member for forever. So Simon's been a Chronic Pain Club member for 15 months now. So big shout out to Simon. Really appreciate it, mate. I can't tell you how much it helps. We do all of this obviously for free. We're not sponsored. We never will be sponsored. So yeah, it just helps keep the lights on. Really appreciate it. And a big thank you to Saduki and Rachel as well, who are Good Egg members and Chronic Pain Club members, respectfully. So thank you so much for that, guys. Really appreciate it. You're superstars. And I know it's you, Yvonne. I can tell from that lovely smile and profile picture, but I didn't want to name drop them. I've made the mistake on these platforms where I've said someone's real name and they're using a handle. So I try to learn from that. Put it this way, I still call Nia Cheeks on here Nia Cheeks, and it's my wife who's sitting next door putting Dylan to sleep whilst on her mobile trying to moderate everything, and I still call her Nia Cheeks just because it's easier and I can't upset anyone that way. So guys, great to see so many of us. We've got Scotland, Northern Ireland. I know Barry's in Ireland. We've got Lauren in the US. Have we actually got anyone here from England or Wales? I thought Cindy was from Wales, but it's Northern Ireland. That's an in joke. Yeah, great guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Like I say, we are a peer support community. Please do help each other in chat. Please do signpost people to things like the other platforms that we've got, like our Discord. I should probably share that there with a little bit of magic. If you're watching on your phone, just take a screenshot and you can get that link later. But we've got a lot of the people you're seeing here in chat are also in our Discord all through the week. Most nights there are people in voice chats, and essentially that Discord exists to escape and distract from your chronic illness. It works for me. I find escapism, distraction works for me as good as any pill. So I use it to complement my regular treatment, and I figured if it works for me, it could work for other people. So that's what we all do there. So we spent the last couple of nights in voice chat, which has been great. It provides a bit of we'll talk about social life and how chronic illness can impact that tonight. And when I lost my social circle, I played rugby and hockey, and suddenly I couldn't do team sport anymore. And I didn't know what to do. And I had a massive void, and I couldn't do stuff in person anymore because I didn't know really where my skill sets were or where I could contribute. And I found communities online, and that's what we do here, guys. So if that sounds like something that could help you just get through the hours in between appointments, scan the QR code. It costs nothing. It's just a Discord server. Go check that out. And we've also got Facebook groups and all that sort of stuff as well. But I'm not going to spam you with links. Welcome in, Theo. Good to see you. Welcome in, Selby. I hope you're well, Selby. Your name comes up occasionally still around our dinner table. I hope you're well and doing okay, mate. You know where we are if you need us. And welcome in, Theo. It's great to see you, guys. I feel like I should stop filling time now. I'm not filling time. I'm talking to you good people, but I feel like I should stop stalling out and bring our guest in because they've been very punctual and been waiting a long time in the green room whilst we were getting everything ready. So let me just kill the music. And usual thing, guys, please keep the messages coming in chat, even though it will leave screen in a moment, because it really does help shape the conversation. I will feature the best comments on screen. Please do support each other. If you need anything, give a shout out to the moderators. And yeah, but the chat will come off screen, but you can carry on talking amongst yourselves on whatever platform you are watching this on. So, guys, I am absolutely delighted to be joined by a clinical psychologist, but also somebody that lives with a condition we'll be talking tonight about in psoriasis. Dr. Catherine O'Leary joins me. Welcome in. I hope you're well.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for having me.
And thank you. And I know you are giving up Sunday evening with family and everything tonight to be with us. So I really do appreciate it and value your time. So thank you.
You're welcome.
So obviously we've met through various circles, through advocacy, psoriasis, and this sort of thing. But for anyone that maybe is coming across to you for the first time, before we really deep dive into your experience and everything, do you want to just briefly introduce yourself, probably better than I could, and then we'll go from there?
So I'm a clinical psychologist. I live and work in South Wales. And in my career, I've specialised in working with people with health conditions. So I've worked in different settings in kidney disease, heart disease, respiratory disease. So that's my career. But alongside that, I'm someone who has psoriasis. So I developed it as a young teenager. And it's something that has challenged me and I've struggled with, and it's an ongoing thing. So quite more recently I've started to bring both sides of my life together sort of that my expertise as a psychologist and my experience as someone who lives with psoriasis.
Yeah, and that's what you are, like the perfect guest for our show, because what we try to do here is get everyone around the table. We share lived experiences, but we also occasionally bring in researchers, academics, medical professionals, etc., to try and get all perspectives. So to have you join us with your medical background, but also as a person living with psoriasis, it's just invaluable. And I really appreciate you join us. And I really hope as well, for anyone that's listened to this on the podcast, we'll get this out in time for World Psoriasis Day next month as well. So so hopefully that'll reach people. So I suppose I should probably say at this point, like most of my background from the questions I'm going to ask you come from a book you've just written. In terms of, it's called Coping with Psoriasis. I'm going to hold it up. We don't tend to do books, so thank you for sending this. I really appreciate it, and I'm still working my way through it. But the thing I wanted to talk about first is what really struck me as the first few pages is how similar your experience was in terms of, I don't know, I think just because I've seen
Was it?
yeah, like really similar
Right.
in terms of, like, because you've written a book and you're talking about these things now, I just assumed you'd always been really confident with living with this condition.
Yeah.
And obviously that was a very different story. Do you want to maybe tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, do you know, lots of people have said that, have said, oh, it's just like reading my own story. And I think, I know the experience of having psoriasis is similar for lots of people, but you forget that other people experience exactly what you're going through as well, and that's quite comforting. But I don't know, where do you want me to start with it? So as a psychologist, I've practiced as a psychologist. People know I have psoriasis. I haven't kept it a secret, but I never show my skin. So people would in the past would never have seen that I had psoriasis, because I'm very, very good at hiding it. And I never wanted to publicly talk about having psoriasis. So when you train as a clinical psychologist, you're encouraged not to disclose too much about yourself, and that's part of our practice, because therapy obviously is about someone else, it's not about you. So there's that going on for me, thinking, well, I can't say too much about myself because I'm a clinical psychologist and it's about other people. But I think the other sort of powerful force was this sort of those feelings of shame, which I don't know if you recognize, but that sort of,
Yes.
that hiding and not really wanting to put myself out there for a long, long time, as someone with psoriasis. And yeah, but obviously I've done it and I'm dealing with it. And actually it's very helpful. It's one of those things that I tell the people I work with all the time, is to be open and tell other people that they trust. And it just occurred to me that actually I wasn't doing that myself. I
I
was
was exactly
hiding
the
it
same.
myself.
If it makes you feel any better, like I've gone like full 360 in terms of, I spent most of my life hiding this stuff, and most of mine came from, like, I think because I mentioned it as a teenage boy, and I experienced stigma straight away, where people were like putting it down to poor hygiene, or because you're a
Yes.
teenage boy and you need to wash more, and these sort of things, and so you stop mentioning it. Um,
And that really sticks with you, doesn't it? That feeling of shame and stigma.
one of my questions was going to be, like, how does them male experiences affect your relationship with the disease? I know how it affected me, but I'd love to hear how it affects someone else.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that. So when we talk about the psychological impact of psoriasis, you often hear about stress and anxiety, and you hear about depression, but you don't always hear about shame. And I think that is one of the really big things that personally I suffered with, and it comes from lots of different sources, um, or directions when you're growing up. There's if you do have to, so when you're growing up, so school was a nightmare. I don't know what it was like for you, but obviously you don't have a choice, do you? My school uniform was navy blue. Can you imagine?
Yeah, mine was a
So
black
I
jumper.
uh,
Yeah. So
so
yeah, I
stressful.
feel your
You,
pain.
and then in the summer, I couldn't. We didn't wear trousers when I was growing up. You had to wear a skirt, and everyone starts wearing short socks, and my legs are absolutely covered in psoriasis. So the shame comes from that attention, people asking questions, people commenting, people being unkind, people looking at you. And then, it builds up. You imagine people are staring, perhaps when they're even not staring. But also, it's this sort of media pressure to have perfect skin. We're fed these ideas that if you eat well, if you exercise well, if you manage your stress, if you eat a clean diet, you can have perfect glowing skin. So in my head, then I'm thinking, is everybody looking at me thinking I'm not taking care of myself, that it's
Yeah.
my fault, that I'm to blame? So that adds into the shame. So
Yeah.
there's like lots and lots of layers to, and I think you feel something like psoriasis where there's not a cure. You think all the time, what is it I've done? It's my fault. So you start to blame yourself.
Yeah.
I'm defective.
And
Yeah, you're
those early
nodding. Yeah,
conversations, yeah, they stick with you. You know what I mean?
of
So, like
course
I
they
say,
do.
being
Yeah,
maybe so, I suffer with inverse psoriasis, and I still to this day get a lot of messages where people, I think I might have said it on last week's show, where people just assume, how can I talk about my experiences? Because when my skin looks so clear, having no idea about the stuff
in
I suffer with, I can't put on Instagram. that
no,
that
no,
wouldn't end well. And like I say, sometimes just that, having that, I feel dirty, and I call it
yeah,
self stigma, because ever since from a young age, I don't know, like, it sounds like you had a similar experience. Like, I'm putting that stigma on myself, that shame and that guilt,
yeah.
and these things and so then it takes a long while to turn that around and start talking about your experiences when you've got all that internal stuff going on.
Oh, I have inverse psoriasis as well, so I,
Yeah.
I know exactly what you mean. I don't think I've ever even mentioned it to my dermatologist.
No. No, I
Have
don't.
you?
Well, I didn't have. Well, I did. When I was 14. So again, another link I had reading your book, where I was just like, I had a sore neck from nodding all the way through. It's like, so mine started with my belly button. I
Oh,
know
me
you
too.
mentioned that. Yes,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
saw
How
that in there.
crazy.
So I
Yeah.
had like a really weeping sort of red rash below my belly button. And for years, well, all through my teenage years, they just told me it was thrush, and I had to keep taking the
Right.
standard over the counter cream, which made it 10 times worse. So by the
Yeah.
time I got to about 16, 17, I just stopped mentioning it. And then I go to
Yeah.
university, and it was worse than ever. And I think you mentioned something similar as well in the book,
Yeah.
of that period. And then, the last thing you want to do is tell anyone or undress or show it off. So
No, you're
you end
so
up just
ashamed,
shutting
aren't
off.
you? Even to like your dermatologist. I mean, I don't know about for you, but I had so it must have been in my 20s, and I'd have to go to the hospital and have um Dithronol. I think was it Dithronol that stained all your clothes, and I
I've
just
not
had
had
to
it myself, but
stand
I've had lots of people
completely
tell.
naked with a nurse. You do, but I think you switch off a little bit then. You like it's so embarrassing, isn't it? You just, and no matter how lovely they are and kind and compassionate, you just try and switch off at all these experiences.
Yeah, and
I
it does show.
madly went and had my belly button pierced then, which goodness knows what I was thinking. But that
You've
turned
got
into
every
a
right to try and live. Do you know what I mean? I've had people go
yeah,
mad at me on social media about my tattoos. I was like, I want the tattoos, and
yeah,
I haven't had a bad. Well, some have, but not all of them. So you try to live, don't you, with these conditions?
yeah, yeah. I had to give up with it though because it did just turn into a patch of psoriasis.
Yeah.
It was not. It wasn't great. It wasn't great.
On that point, actually, and I know I'm jumping around here, but this just feels like so. And I'm sorry that I'm sharing. It should be about your experience, but there's
Oh no,
obviously a
it's
lot of
really
similarities.
nice. Yeah.
Yes, a lot of similarities. But on that point with sorry, I lost my train of thought. Then bloody backache I've got today. Um, so yeah, with the belly button and everything else, do you find, like, in terms of like injuries, because again, because I wasn't educated on my condition, everyone focused on my joints and my arthritis and everything else, so
Yeah.
nobody sat down and told me what psoriasis was, or how the blisters on my hand were the same as the rashes in my groin and all this sort of thing. Um and one thing I sort of started noticing in my 20s when I was playing sport and things is, like, I'd damage my knees, get astro burns or things like that, and then suddenly psoriasis would all pop up around that.
Yeah.
Have you had that
Oh,
experience?
completely. Yeah, yeah. If I cut myself, and I think in fact the very first patch I had was on my arm, as I fell I was running with my friends in the playground and fell. And you've always got grazed elbows
Yeah.
and knees, but one turned into what I know now was a patch of psoriasis. Um, so not always, oddly, but oftentimes.
Yeah,
Um,
that's the same I found. Like, it
yeah,
won't happen every time, but I find, like, my hand, like, even just like gardening, if I nick it on a thorn or something like that, give it a week, and suddenly
yeah,
I've got that. So I don't know, for anyone that isn't familiar with psoriasis, do you want to maybe explain the processes a little bit? Like, I know there's some deep stuff when it comes to sort of like the autoimmune side, but in terms of like by its nature what it
what's
is.
going well.
Yeah.
So my, I'm not a medical doctor,
No,
so
of course.
my understanding is probably similar to yours, Joel. But what I think understand it as happening is that our skin renews. Everyone's skin renews all the time. It happens very slowly, so you don't really notice it. But for some reason in psoriasis, it speeds up in certain patches, and so it goes so fast that it builds up and flakes off. And I think all the capillaries are. So when I was one of my first jobs was in St George's Hospital, and I took part in a research trial where they injected me with something and then examined my capillaries under a microscope, so
Okay.
I could see how they were so close to the surface, which is why you get, and they were all twisty, which is why I'm probably doing a huge disservice, but it's why the patches are so red and inflamed.
Yeah.
So ultimately, they get very sore, they flake, you get them everywhere, your hair, in your ears, like you say, inverse, like under folds of skin. And it can also, the same process can happen with your joints, so that you can have inflammation in your joints. And as scientists and researchers are learning more about psoriasis, they recognize that actually it's a whole system condition, so it can affect other organs, so it increases your risk of like cardiovascular disease. Yeah, I don't know if I've missed anything.
No. And the thing is, I think them comorbidities are really important. It's something we shout about a lot outside of this channel and other stuff that we do around psoriatic disease, because, I went decades without, so a high cholesterol. I've always had high cholesterol, whether I was super skinny and playing sport or overweight,
Mm-hmm.
just doesn't change. And it took decades for anyone to explain to me, like, your cardiovascular disease and things like that is all linked to same processes going on with your psoriatic disease. And yeah, and so that education is just so important, isn't it? And just
Yeah.
seeing a dermatologist for a couple of minutes and being given a cream kind of doesn't cover the wider impact of living with this.
No, I always think of it, and I might be wrong with this, but like a bit like a volcano. So the process is like a volcano, and the cream is a bit like somebody giving you a bucket of water to throw over it, and it may dampen it down a little bit, but ultimately it's just gonna come up
Yeah,
again.
yeah,
Because it's an autoimmune mediated condition, and so the treatments that target the immune system seem to be more effective.
yeah. And then people wonder why there's sort of like an adherence issue with things like steroid creams, because they're quite laborious. You got to do it every day, like you say, they stain your sheets and all these sort of
Yeah.
things, and it is a bit of an after effect, isn't it? It's kind of after the horse has bolted. You're
Yes.
trying to,
Yeah.
try to put a fire blanket on something, and yeah, so it's hard.
Yeah.
So we've touched a little bit on like trigger when you mentioned your piercing. I mentioned the tattoos and everything, but there are other triggers as well. Like, I know what my personal ones are, but I'd be interested to know what ones you've found over the years that trigger your psoriasis.
Well, for me personally, I have never ever noticed that stress makes mine worse.
Right?
Um,
Okay.
um, so I know a lot of people say that that's the case for them. I think there's a little bit of a chicken and an egg. So obviously, when it's bad, I feel stressed.
Yeah.
But there have been periods in my life when I've had lots going on, and maybe I've just finished phototherapy and my skin's quite clear, so I haven't noticed that it's gotten worse with the stress. And I because I'm a psychologist, so I'm interested in stress. I have tried to monitor myself very carefully. I'm aware of my stress levels. So I've never ever noticed that for me. The only things I do notice, like if I'm stressed, I'm not sleeping very well, and I think sleep is a factor. So if I have a period where I can't sleep, it gets worse. And the other thing I think for me, and I'm not 100% sure whether I'm right. I've written a chapter on this. It's about diet. I don't know if you're the same, but I think that sugar and junk food makes it worse. But I don't know whether I just give myself a really hard time and it's
No,
not.
I'm laughing because I was literally in our Discord server last night. We were on a voice chat with just other people with long-term health conditions, and I'd complained literally less than 24 hours ago to say, why do I keep drinking stuff with sugar in? Because I know like it makes my joints throb, it makes my skin itch. I have no evidence for that. It's just a personal experience. And actually, it's interesting what you said about the sleep thing. Because I always blame stress, but then, like you say, chicken and egg, often I won't sleep. One or two reasons. One, because I'm itching and I'm sore, or because I'm stressed and overthinking and worrying and going down a
Mm-mm-mm.
spiral of negative
Mm-hmm.
thoughts, and then my psoriasis flares. So was it because I didn't sleep, or was it because I was stressed that caused me not to sleep? And yeah,
Yes, and of
chicken
course,
and egg.
when you're stressed, you're not going to take out a tube of cream and meticulously apply it
No,
to every one of your however many hundred patches, are you?
yeah, no.
Um,
No, and you'll probably understand the psychology of this a lot more than me, but also I know I'm more likely to make bad choices with diet and things like that when
yeah,
I'm not doing well mentally. You know,
yeah,
I'll want to have something to look forward to at the end of a hard day at work. So maybe that's the night you go get a takeaway, or you don't
yes,
go for that run because you want to just isolate yourself, or whatever that might look like. So I think that feeds, that's
yes.
personal observation, you know.
Yeah, but you know, I'm sure that stress does have an impact on. So not as a trigger, but we do know there's sort of inflammatory processes related to stress. Of course, that's going to make it worse, isn't it?
Mhm.
You know, and the stress hormones probably make things a lot worse too. So there is some research that mindfulness meditation can help people clear up their psoriasis. So there is something in it, but it's a complex picture. And I think what I always felt is that people would say to me, "Oh, is it caused by stress?" And I'd be a bit like, well, it felt blaming, like I'm someone who gets stressed too easily. What's wrong with you? Just manage your
Yeah,
stress and you won't
yeah,
have psoriasis. And I find that frustrating because
yeah,
stress is a normal human reaction to situations where you need to react quickly and efficiently. So I wouldn't want, you can't get rid of your stress. You'd be a danger to yourself if you didn't have any stress response to anything. Um, so, what do you do with that? What do you do with that other than, it adds heaps on to those feelings of shame and self-blame that everyone's looking at you and thinking, oh, you're not someone who manages their stress very well.
yeah.
Very
And
frustrating.
I think there is so much like this sort of disease. I know it happens with lots of other chronic illnesses where it's kind of focused at the individual. You did something wrong, you ate wrong, or you didn't move enough, or you didn't
Yeah.
adhere to your medications enough. And it's that, and on those bad days, I find when I am struggling maybe with the mental burden of the disease, you hold on to that stuff. You know, you
Yeah, you
start
do.
turning it inward on yourself, don't you? And blame. I don't know. I'm assuming, but I know I do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think part of it is you thinking, what can I do to help? What can I do? I've got to do something. I've got to. I don't know about you, but my thing, and I probably still do this, is when it's really bad. I think I'm not going to eat anything except vegetables.
Oh, yep, I've been there. Yeah, I'm just gonna have greens, and that doesn't
Yeah.
last.
Well, it's impossible, isn't it? But you think,
Yeah,
right, what can I do? What can I do? I won't eat any sugar. I'm not going to drink any alcohol. I'm going to try and get 10 hours of sleep. I'm going to meditate 4 times a day. It's not
yeah, no,
sustainable, is it?
no.
Um, yeah.
I
And
got I got to
when
no,
I
go on.
go to my phototherapy treatment, there's only one poster on the wall about psoriasis, and it is all about improving your habits to help with your skin. And honestly, I don't know why I haven't
Just
taken it down
rip it
because
down, yeah.
yeah,
That's all right, you haven't
I'm
just,
like,
like, don't premeditated that on a YouTube channel. No one will know, it's fine.
yeah,
But
oh
I
yeah,
was
please don't put
laughing,
the blame on me.
I was laughing when you were talking about stress because well, he'll tell you he's 5.5 now. My 5-year-old is going through a process now where he'll tell me I've got to chill out and take no, yeah, take a chill pill, Dad. Stop
Does
stressing out,
he?
take a chill pill. Like, thanks. This has come from someone that literally can't go 20 minutes without controlling their emotions. But I've got to chill out and
Yeah,
take a chill
I love
pill.
that.
um, but no, I that experience, like in terms of like putting it on yourself and that, and I'm sure mine comes from those bad experiences when I was younger about like my skin not being prioritized and the stigma I faced being a teenager and all this sort of thing.
Mhm.
But a good example of that is I got sunburnt this year on holiday. And it was horrendous. For about 4 nights, I was in agony putting cream on. I was like in shock almost. My body was shaking and everything. Swore blind that I was never going to go out in the sun again without being completely covered up, hats, cream. It lasted about a month. It
Did
didn't
it?
happen.
Yeah.
And I just had to accept, I'm human. We make mistakes. I got it wrong. I
Yeah.
lost track of time. But yeah, we could maybe talk a little bit about the depression link because for me, that if that was a seesaw, that is that weighs on me more than the actual what my psoriasis looked like or how it makes me feel. I don't know what your experience is.
What do you mean by that?
So in terms of how much the low mood that I get living with the condition,
Yeah,
it weighs heavier on me than
than the
how I
actual
worry
skin.
about the rash looking, or how it makes me feel.
Yeah,
Generally, it does. It's always. I've always said that I've never had depression, negative thoughts without having a skin flare. So
yeah,
they're linked, but I don't
yeah.
think it's so much about how it makes me feel or how it looks. It's I don't know. It just seems to set off a trigger in terms of like
Uh-huh.
depression and low mood whenever I have a flare of psoriasis.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And you're not on your own. I think it's very common for people to feel quite low and depressed when their psoriasis flares for multiple reasons. Um, because of depression is complex, and lots of different factors uh, can contribute to somebody feeling depressed. So one thing can trigger it, and then lots of factors then contribute to making it worse. But often we kind of then get into these sort of grooves of negative thinking, like this will never get any better, this is hopeless. And then it very quickly spirals, which is what happens with depression. Your thinking
Yeah.
becomes quite negative, your behavior changes. So you stop, taking interest in the things that used to bring you joy. You stop seeing people and doing the things you love. And then that contributes to the low mood, and it can spiral quite quickly.
Yeah, it really does for me. And for me, it was things like pain management and that made me notice that sort of thing more. So no dermatologist or rheumatologist has ever helped me with like understand that side of it. It's kind of like take this tablet, take this cream,
Yeah.
exercise more, eat better. But it was only when I discovered things like CBT and worry management, and it's all stuff I had to find myself in the pandemic because I couldn't access support, but I was sort of spiraling. And now I
Yes.
notice it, and I'm so proud that I spot the red flags. Like I used to rely heavily on my wife and my support network and
Uh-huh.
everything
Yeah.
to tell me, Joel, you're getting short, or you're not going out as much, or you're not looking after
Yeah.
yourself as much. But now I can spot them, and it's so important. I don't know if you want to say anything about that, or how you use that side of things to manage your condition.
Yeah. So I think for me, and I don't know if it's the same for you, but you often only realize in retrospect that you'd become depressed because it happens very, very slowly. So it's not like it's one day and you're not depressed and the next day you are, and there's a huge difference. You bit by bit by bit by bit, your mood lowers and you feel worse and worse, and it almost becomes your norm then, doesn't it? And so it does take the people around you to spot. And actually, that is a really helpful relapse prevention technique, to have people you trust to tell you, I think you might be feeling a bit depressed. But like you, I have never been offered any form of psychological support for my skin, ever, ever, ever. I remember at one time, I'd been told I'd had my lifetime dose of phototherapy, which was really the only thing that was working for me. And my skin was really bad. And I went to see a dermatologist, and I was like, oh, it's fine. I'm coping with it because we've taken all the mirrors down in the house. So I said, I've only got one mirror at head height.
Wow.
Honestly, I thought
Yeah.
that was a good coping
And you
strategy
thought
at the
that was good.
time.
I know, but I've
That
been
was the
there. I've
yeah.
I've said similar things where like somebody asked me what my hobbies were, and I was like, "Oh, well, I can't turn my wrist over anymore, so I've just put all the guitars away so I don't see them." And then that thought I'd done exactly the same thing,
Yeah,
and you think you're coping. It's
yeah.
mad.
Anyway, I mean, that was before I trained as a clinical psychologist. So, I think I'm really lucky because throughout my training, literally every therapy that I've been taught and every theory, I have always thought, how does that apply to me as someone with psoriasis? Always. And then I absolutely use those skills. So something like CBT. So I've learned to deliver CBT. So if people don't know what CBT is, it's cognitive behavior therapy. And it's this idea that the way we think affects what we do, what we don't do, and that affects how we feel. So CBT is very much aimed at people learning to be aware of their thinking processes and to notice when they're making thinking errors, catastrophizing or trying to predict the future, and then to sort of challenge them with another thought. Anyway, so I've learned to deliver that, and I practice it. So
Yeah.
it's something that I do very naturally now. So when you're I don't know if you found this, but when you first do CBT, they get you to write it down because it doesn't feel natural, and then
Oh,
over
yeah.
time it just
I really
becomes.
struggled the first time. So
Yeah,
now I'm well versed. I sort of I feel like the last 3 years I've had like an annual CBT top up, but the
yeah.
first time I really struggled, and I think it's probably fair to say it made me a little bit worse before I got better because I was having to challenge things that maybe I was just burying
That's
my head
in
in the
Well,
sand.
it's interesting you should say that because there's what they call a third wave of cognitive behavior therapy called acceptance and commitment therapy, which I don't know if you've got to that part in the
Yes,
book.
I'd done level 3 last summer,
Ah,
and it
there we are.
changed everything. And it seems weird, not fixed is the wrong word, but since then I've not had to go back for any follow ups, which has been amazing.
So when we call it ACT for shorthand, but in many ways I find ACT more helpful because whereas CBT you're really examining your thoughts and you write them down and you challenge them, which can bring you down a bit.
Yeah,
In ACT, you kind of recognize that this happens with your thinking as part of being human, and you just learn to notice that it's a thought, not necessarily the truth, and you kind of unhook yourself from the thinking. So
yeah,
you create a little bit of distance between you and the thoughts, which just allows you to focus your attention on something else.
yeah.
Um, yeah.
And I find myself using the language of like realizing now, like, so where I'll be like, I'll say to my wife, oh, I really don't want to do that. But if I put it off, I'm going to lose today because I'm going to be worrying about it. So if I don't put my head above the parapet, I'm not going to know one way or the other. And that
Uh-huh.
I think the language that was used in mine was things like the bear in the bush, and it could be a rabbit or it could be a bear, and you don't know that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That really helped me. Like I didn't think it would. If you'd asked me that a couple of years ago, I'd have said absolutely not. But knowing that it's not helping by just sort of putting my head in the sand and avoiding everything, you know?
Yeah, 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 yeah. So those kind of things I practice. So if I find myself, you know, worrying or fretting or feeling really low, I notice it in that moment. You're feeling really miserable. What's going on in your head? And then I would either go the CBT route, which is like, no, come on, what other reason could there be for this? Or I may just do the ACT route where I think, right, I'm just going to try and be present in this moment here and now. I'm going to distance myself from my thinking, and then I'm going to turn my attention to something that brings me value, that brings meaning to my life.
Yeah,
Which may be hanging out with my kids or walking with my dog or doing something like that.
yeah.
Um,
No,
and
it
the
is.
other thing,
Yeah.
go on, sorry.
No, I was going to say it's purely because of that I play guitar again now, even though I can't do it to the level I was constantly measuring myself against what I could do before my disability.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget that guy. Like I owe him a lot, so he was like, "Oh, what are you worried about this week?" And I said, "Well, I had this message from this guy. He wants me to come and play bass with him, but I know I won't be very good." And he's like, "Message him now." I was like, "Well, no, I don't. I don't really think I want to." It's like, "No, we're going to message him now." Yeah,
Yeah.
like, and he
Yeah.
sort of made me commit because I'd just constantly been putting off, and then
Yeah.
nothing happened, and people just give up on you and they move away,
Uh-huh.
understandably. And yeah, I'm very thankful that he literally made me on the video call
Do
send a
it.
WhatsApp message there. I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
pouring a sweat.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, there are simple techniques, but I use them and I practice it. I mean, that doesn't mean to say there aren't periods when I feel really
Yeah,
low and fed up. I absolutely
yeah,
do. But the other thing that I do is I kind of give myself a break. I think to myself, well, yeah, of course I feel depressed. It's really hard. It doesn't mean I'm weak. It doesn't mean I should be ashamed of myself. So then what do I do? Well, then who can I tell? Who can I get some support from? Who can I go and have a coffee with? Who'll give me a hug? Um, so that would come from a therapy I'm trained in called interpersonal psychotherapy, which is like focused on our relationships and using
mhm,
your social network. So there's lots of different strands. It's like when you take a problem and you come at it at different angles. So we think of something like CBT as being quite intrapsychic, so internal, and then something like IPT being much more external. What have we got around us that can help us cope in this moment?
yeah.
Um,
I
yeah,
think it's really important as well to just really hammer home for anyone watching this either now or later or listening to it back that stuff's all there and it's available. There might be a wait for some of it, but as you said, dermatologist didn't tell you about it. That certainly was my experience as well. That I found out, and I know I've said this on the show before, so I apologize for anyone who's hearing this for the third time. I grew up most of my life I've had a pain management clinic 3 miles from my house, and I didn't know it. And no one thought to tell me when I was really in a dark place with my pain and was not managing. And that changed my life. I'd done like 9 months, like really intensive things with that, and that was all available. My GP mentioned it one day, and I bit his hand off. So I think it's really important for anyone watching or listening to this to know that stuff is out there, but it might not always be obviously signposted.
No, and the people that you're seeing might not be aware of it either. So oftentimes that's why they're not telling you. But for people from the UK, most areas have run ACT groups, like I think they call them Action for Living. So, it might even be worth Googling your health board or your trust and ACT groups and see what's available. A lot of times you can just sign up yourself. You don't need a referral, depending where you live. And they're the kind of groups where they teach you the strategies rather than you having to sort of share stuff about yourself. If that's not your cup of tea, you can just go kind of learn these strategies. But I think that was one of the main motivators for me writing this book. It felt, I knew these things were helping me cope with it. And although I didn't want to tell the world about my psoriasis, I felt like I just need to share it. So that's what I've done. So the management strategies and techniques that I find helpful and that I use, I've put into the book, and I hope I've made it sort of simplistic enough that people can just read it and use them. So I hope that, I haven't diluted it, because I think they are pretty straightforward techniques, aren't they? When, some of it is like, so some things when I'm working with people in the clinic room and when we talk about something, they're a bit like, you've absolutely blown my mind, because I never thought of that before, and it's so obvious. So you just sometimes, so hopefully they're there in the book. So if you can't get to a group, if you don't want to go to a group, if you can't access a psychologist, you can at least read it there, or go to my website. Some of it's there as well, and that's all freely available.
Superb. And we'll put that, anyone who's watching this at a later date or listen to the podcast, we'll put that link to your website in the description. But I think as well, like, it's that for a lot of people, because I was reading it, and for me it was almost like that validation, like, okay, it's not just me that feels that shame or puts that on me, and I know this from hearing other people, but sometimes just to see it in words that somebody else had those experiences really helped. And we have lots of people on here who sort of turn to advocacy or sharing their stories, and there tend to be like a trigger moment or something like that. I suppose one of my sort of final questions to you was there something like that? And if there wasn't, but also, how does it help? How have you found it's helped you since sharing your story? Like, is it benefiting you by sort of doing this sort of about turn and being more open with it?
That's a really great question. So there's two parts to it. Was there something that happened? No, I don't think so. So the book I've written is part of a series of books written by clinical psychologists who have lived experience. So there's a book on coping with breast cancer, coping with endometriosis, coping with trauma, and there are more in the pipeline about to come out. So the first time they put out a call for these books, somebody who knew I had psoriasis said, "Oh, Catherine, why don't you?" Because at that point I'd set up the website, but I hadn't put my name to it or any pictures of myself. It was like anonymous.
And I can relate to that. I went as Joel versus arthritis for the first 18 months and tried to hide behind that.
And I was a bit like, so they said, "Why don't you do it?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, no, I couldn't. I absolutely couldn't do that." And I put it out of my head. And then the pandemic happened, and in order to reach our patients, we had to start doing stuff online. And at first I was terrified. I didn't want my name out there. I didn't want my face out there. But the more I did it, the more comfortable I felt about it. So the second time they put the call out for someone to write a book, a clinical psychologist to write a book about lived experience, I was like, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And I put in a proposal to the publishers, and they were like, yeah, that sounds great. And then I had sleepless nights right up until it was published, waking up in a cold sweat, like, what have I done?
I can relate.
Like, everybody was going to know about all my embarrassing stories. And I'd put in the introduction where I've got psoriasis, and I'd said I have it on my bum. I don't know if you remember reading that bit, and that just was, I'd wake in the middle of the night thinking, oh, I've
Like
said it on this
sweats.
podcast now, so now everybody knows.
Yeah, I can give what page number us on.
I don't want everybody knowing that about me. But actually, the more you do it, the more your kind of feelings of shame they dissipate. They just
Yeah,
go off into the
do.
ether. It's fantastic. So that I'm practicing what I preach, and
Yeah,
it's true. You hide, and you keep secrecy, and the shame builds and grows. You talk about it, and it dilutes.
yeah.
Because there's the me too. Everyone says, yeah, I get it. I'm the same. And then you feel compassion for them. And then the compassion flows, and you feel compassion for yourself. Yeah.
Sometimes it's just having that hope, and I don't know about for me, it was always hardest with those closest. So like my advocacy took me to doing talks outside of the UK before I'd done too much inside the UK, just
Uh-huh.
weirdly, just circumstance. And then this week I'd done a local radio interview, and I was terrified just because in my head it was like, okay, people that actually know me in
You're
real
gonna listen.
life down the street
Yes.
are gonna, and I was
Yes.
sweating, I was all over the place.
Yeah.
And I think, come on, Joel, you've been doing this for years now. But for me anyway, it's made like talking about it for my parents. I never knew really know how to talk about it to my parents because I
No,
was,
nor me.
just didn't. So when I sometimes see my dad like a Facebook post or puts a comment on one of these, and it's just,
Yeah.
oh wow, you're actually listening. This, yeah, I'm getting somewhere now. This is nice.
Yes.
Uh,
That sounds just like my experience as well. So I work, obviously, because I'm a psychologist. I work with other psychologists, and there was another psychologist and a social worker in my team. And I talk about this in the book about the kind of people you need in your life. And you need people to give you emotional support, you need people who can give you practical support, you need people you can have fun with, and you need people who will be cheerleaders, like you can
yeah,
do this.
yeah,
Those four categories, it might be one person who fulfills all of them, but you need those boxes ticked. Anyway, I worked with another psychologist and a social worker, and they were my cheerleaders throughout me writing the book. So any time I had doubt, they were like, that's why it's important, that's why you should be doing it.
yeah,
And they would boost me
yeah,
totally, and I would
yeah,
like, right, yes, I need to do it. And because other people are feeling this shame, and we shouldn't be, and I need to share this psychology. Yeah, so
Yeah, it's a really
did I answer
powerful
your
thing.
question?
So you absolutely did. It was brilliant, and I'm always fascinated how other people got into all this, because sometimes I'll think, "Oh, was I mad to start this whole thing?" And just like, why do we do it? And I realize, well, actually, it helps me and it's therapeutic, and it gets me out of bed in the morning on those days that are really hard, because if I can't help my own situation, I can maybe help someone else's, and that sort of thing. So yeah, I'm always fascinated to hear why other people share, and just
Yeah.
thank you for doing so on behalf of the community. As somebody that's heavily entrenched in the psoriasis and psoriatic disease sort of community, thank you so much for sharing what you do.
No, I'm really pleased I've done it. And when I started writing, it was like a torrent, and I literally couldn't stop.
Yeah,
Until it
yeah,
didn't take me as long as I'd anticipated, because I think I'd been holding it in my head for all these years and years of working as a psychologist and studying psychology, and I couldn't get the words out fast enough. So that was a relief in itself, just to get the book done. So yeah, I should have done it 10 years ago, but it is what it is, isn't it? And
Oh, don't.
yeah.
Yeah, I've had that conversation so many times. Why did I wait until I was like in my 30s before I started speaking up? Well, think of what I could have done if I'd have done it earlier. But I needed that experience. I needed to go through them dark, in my mind anyway. I had to go through them dark places to understand the value of sharing these things. And everyone sort of has their own path, don't they?
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
going to I'm going to share this on screen one more time for anyone that wants to. Sorry, I'm terrible at doing this. There we go. Cope with Psoriasis, Dr. Catherine O'Leary. It's a brilliant read. It's so easy to read as well. I flew through it. Like I say, I'm only about halfway through, but I was flying through it. So I'd recommend anyone go get that. They can find it. Let me find that. I'll put it on screen again for anyone that's watching us live. They can find it there. Is there any other things you want to plug whilst you're here, social media, or where people can find you or anything like that?
So the book you can get from, I think, Amazon and all bookstores. And I'm on Instagram, Dr. Catherine O'Leary, and I'm on X, Dr. Catherine _OL. and my website there. In fact, I think you can find all the links if you go to the website.
Yeah, and like I say, for anyone that's watching this back or listening to it back, they'll all be in the description. Catherine, thank you so much for joining us. I feel like we could have gone on for like another hour.
Yeah, me too.
And you're welcome back anytime. And also, I apologise because it should be all about the guest, and I feel like tonight has been a very much back and forth. So I hope you didn't mind.
No, it's fantastic.
Experiences.
Yeah, no, it's great speaking to someone else who has psoriasis. And sharing. So yeah, I really appreciate it.
Brilliant, and I hope this is just the first time that we're in a conversation together, because it's been really fascinating, and yeah, you're doing great things. So thank you on behalf of the community for sharing what you are.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Brilliant. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I'll speak soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Guys, thank you so much for all of your lovely comments throughout that. I will share. So I think I shared a lot on screen. I will share any more as I get caught up with chat. Welcome in, Amy. I hope you're good. Sorry you had to hear so much on my side on that, guys. But it just felt like it was important for us to share those shared experiences, because that's how we understand where the pain points are and where we need to, focus our efforts to give people of tomorrow better experiences. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that, guys. That just felt very easy, and I was looking at the clock thinking, oh no, I've got about another half an hour of stuff I'd like to ask. So maybe we'll do a part 2 on that, guys, if you enjoyed it. Yeah, chat's back up on screen now, guys. If I missed anything, please let me know. Thank you for your comments during that, Yvonne, Nia. Sharon, thank you for watching from France. I hope you're well. So if you were watching us on Facebook, guys, you had only seen the messages on Facebook. Most of the things you'll see here obviously are on YouTube. So if you want to be involved in the chat that's off screen during the interviews in future episodes, please do. And I totally forgot to do this at the start of the show, so if anyone's still with us, call out for guests. It is that time of year where conference season has gone, everyone's a bit burnt out with doing all the PR, they've got nothing to promote anymore. If anyone would like to come on and share either their lived experience, their advocacy, stuff they're doing, or do you just have a lived experience story to share? We've had numerous people where this has been the first place that they've shared their story, and I'm very proud of that. I almost swore. I'm very proud of that. It's kind of what we started off doing, and every now and then I like to come back to it. So if anyone would like to come on and share their experiences, obviously we focus on autoimmune disease a lot here. That's purely, I think, because of my contacts and what I work in regarding advocacy, but it's an open book. We've not had anyone coming on talking specifically about cancer. I'd like to discuss that. I'd like anyone that's got experience. It's a bit of a heavy one. I mentioned it on my social media recently. I'd love to do an episode on people that have lost people through the opioid crisis. I know that'd be a really hard watch, but it feels important. It'd be really hard for me as well. I feel like I probably need a medical professional involved as well, just to be on the sidelines for support. But that would be one I'd love to cover. We've not covered Parkinson's. Oh no, we have covered Parkinson's. Sorry, not Parkinson's. Somebody gave me a guest recommendation, and they're from the Parkinson's field, which is why I said that. I'm trying to think of the condition. Sickle cell. That would be a good one to cover. But anything, guys, that you think that we've not covered that we should, and as far away from autoimmune disease as fine. Take me out of my comfort zone. You all enjoy watching that anyway. Take me out of my comfort zone, and we'll let's get some stuff in the diary that isn't necessarily autoimmune disease. Obviously, we'll keep that coming anyway because of the work I do. That's just naturally going to hook me up to people in those spaces. Amy, I hope you're well. Great to have you back. Nice to know you're on home soil safely. You're doing amazing things out there. Guys, big shout out to regular of the community, Amy, who's been out presenting in Sweden. You're doing awesome stuff, and we're very proud of you. And Nia Cheeks actually nominated you to me the other day to get you back on the show. So no pressure, and I'm just putting you right on the spot here in front of an audience, because that's what we do to our regulars, to thank them. So Amy has currently got the most watched, it goes to her head every time I say this, the most watched Chronic Pain Club episode way back when we used to be on Twitch. We uploaded it onto YouTube and it went mad. It's got over 5,000 or 6,000 views. People watching like the whole thing, not just the start or anything. really popular, and that was back when our tech was awful. We were on Twitch, it wasn't great. Nia suggested getting you back, Amy, but in your more professional capacity now, and maybe being what you are. I don't want to share too much in case you're not covered with it. Being what you do for a job with a chronic health condition, that could be a topic we could cover, since we've all moved on and got older and our lives have gone in different directions. Just dangling that out there and let the community apply the pressure. Yeah, I'll work on Cine next. Just it. The thing is, guys, if Cine comes on, I'm out of a job, because everyone's going to hear his voice and they're not going to want to listen to me in my Norfolk rambling again. Like, they're just not. Like, if Cine comes on his show, he gets a job in voiceovers. Simple as that. Like, that's going to happen. Absolutely going to happen. We're going to be like, do you remember that guy that used to hang out in our community that went on to be a radio presenter? So yeah, guys, let me have your suggestions. Send me a DM or whatever if you'd like to share your experience, or if you know somebody that might be involved. And it could be the whole spectrum. We've had researchers, we've had academics, we've had leaders of patient organizations, we've had celebrities, we've had industry reps, we've had a couple of clinical psychologists now. I'm trying to think. We've had a broad range, so there's no real limit, guys. If you've got a story to tell, then we're happy to share it, because between now and Christmas it does get quiet, because like I say, everybody's promoted everything they need to promote. The conference season is coming to an end, and all of a sudden people stop putting their hand up for these things. So if you want to get involved, guys, there are slots between now and I think it's something like the second week of December. Get in touch, let me know. So I should have put that call out at the start of the show. Sorry, I forgot, guys, but the admin's in now. Lauren voting for Cine as well. Would be happy to. So much, Amy, that'd be amazing, because we could do if you're going to come on the show, I can say it, can't I? Can I say what you do for a living? I'm always very worried about sharing stuff on here when people don't want to share. But we could do medical professional living with arthritis. That'd be a really good one. I can already think of a title in my head. But let's go with that. And yeah, again, guys, thank you for all the channel members that we've got. Really appreciate it. It helps us massively. If you'd like to know more about that, is it this link? Oh my God, I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. There we go. There's the QR code. If you'd like to know more about being a channel member, because it really does support our show. We're totally unsponsored, unfunded. There is no one giving us money to do this every Sunday. We do it because we feel it's needed, because we feel like peer support is essential to get us between the appointments. And yeah, so if you want to support us for a couple of pounds a month, you can there. And know it goes on to all the equipment. Like, I can't say how much equipment because Nia Cheeks is on the call, but all the equipment. And yeah, it just keeps the lights on, guys. I really appreciate it. It's a massive shout out to Simon, who's been a member for over a year now, and Saduki and Rachel. Really appreciate it, guys. You're superstars. And in time, as we get more, I'd like to have like a little roll and credit thing at the end that has everyone's names. I think that'd be a nice way to thank people as well. All right, Amy. Yeah, so we're going to come in soon. Amy, I'm going to send you the link straight after I go offline. So we can have, being an OT with arthritis or whatever it's going to be called. That'd be awesome. It's a lot. It is a lot. And if my body keeps breaking, it's going to only keep going up, because I've done a video, by the way, guys, go check it out on the YouTube channel, why we're not on Twitch at the minute. Basically, my body's broken. I can do this for an hour, but I can't do the whole 3-hour streams at the minute, which means there won't be any marathon charity streams coming up, which is really terrible timing when you've just launched your own charity. And I can't go and do an 8-hour fundraiser, but I just can't. It'll break me. So I'll try and think of another way we can fundraise, because we've got no money in the bank. It's just an empty bank account, like all new charities have. So I'll try and think of a way we can raise money, because normally we'd go do the 8-10 hour streams. I just can't do it. It'll ruin me, and I can't afford that at the minute. I'm spinning enough plates as it is without breaking myself off. Sometimes you've got to practice what you preach. And on that note, guys, I'm going to love you and leave you. Thank you for joining me tonight. Great to see so many regulars in here. Great to know that Amy's coming back on the show. No pressure, but you've set a fairly high bar with your first video, Amy. So, bring your A game. I'll send you the link after this and we'll get you booked in. If anyone else would like to join us, then please do. And a shout out, Lauren, to your other half, whose video still gets views. The audio version, weirdly, I think it's just because she's got such an immaculate voice. But yeah, good old Kevin still gets lots and lots of listens on the podcast from when he joined us. And I think he hadn't shared his story that many times. I know, Lauren, it was probably your first time sharing the story. So I'm really proud of that and happy to support other people who want to come on and tell us about their lived experience. The more diverse condition, the better, guys, just to make sure that we can really try and cover as much as possible. And until next time, I'm going to stop rambling and I'll leave you to your Sunday night. I hope Monday's easy on you guys and gentle on your bones, and I will see you all soon. Bye bye.